All right, Risa, thanks for joining the Pain and Performance podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm quite excited to talk about this. I was having a conversation with a patient today about how her neighbor told her that she needed to go back to eating keto again, despite the fact that it didn't quite work for her the first time. And we had a long discussion about how, like, it's human nature to think about what works for us should naturally just work for everybody. And so we tell everyone, like, this is how you should eat. This is how you should live. This is how you should exercise. So when I was digging into your stuff, I was like, I love the customization and the individualization of what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about you, how you kind of got into this.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head, but I basically have been interested in nutrition for as long as I can remember. I just grew up in a home where my mother was just always on a diet, right? She was always trying to lose that 5 to 10 pounds. And it was, some foods were good, some foods were bad. And I thought, the bad foods kind of taste pretty good to me. So I'm not sure exactly why they're bad. And, you grow up thinking, why is this, why do we have this relationship with food? It's our fuel. So I, like every girl in America, it seemed I was always, on a diet or restricting or, I just had this bad relationship with food, and then I started to just dive into it. I was so curious about it, and I just became really passionate about nutrition and how it feeds us and why some foods don't, and why we eat them, and why there are foods that don't feed us, and so on and so forth. So I kind of went down a different path. After college, I went into accounting, and then I went into sports management and worked for a couple of NFL and NBA teams. And so it just was different path, but I kept reading everything in nutrition. And then I raised my kids and gave them real food and sort of experimented on them a bit. And what would happen if you don't give them sugar and all that kind of stuff. And so they still talk to me, which is great. And then I ended up going back to school, becoming a nutritionist. And when I started my practice years and years ago, I basically put everybody on the same kind of eating lifestyle, right? This is how we should eat. And then I realized, why are some people thriving this way and other people are not really thriving? They're doing okay, but they're not thriving like the other people. And I started to realize that we should be eating according to our current health status. And that's how I developed my methodology, Food Frame. And it's really been very effective, and it works for people. So I've been doing Food Frame for quite some time, and I realized that you would be great with keto, for example, if you had your gallbladder, or if you didn't have any issues with digesting fats. That might work for you. If you're a woman, it's got less odds of working for you. If you've got high stress, a lot of cortisol production, it's, again, not going to help you. But if you fit for keto, then it's great. I tried keto and couldn't get into the state of ketosis, no matter what I tried, unless I used exogenous ketones. So it's one size does not fit all. And I think I cracked the code, basically, the secret of why we don't thrive, why that diet book comes out or that eating philosophy comes out, that book, and everybody's reading it, and some people do great with it, but others don't. And it's because we are all different.
Yeah, it's like it sells books, right? It's a great idea, but does it really help us, get healthier in terms of, ourselves improving our health? Or is it just the flashy thing that helps, sell books or make a better social media clickbait, right?
Exactly.
So how would somebody find out, I've tried a few things. You're saying I need to start with what's best for me. What's the steps for them to learn, I guess, about where they're at today?
Yeah, so what I do is I created the Food Frame quiz. It's on my website, so it's really easy. There's only 12 questions, and you answer these questions to determine what your food frame is. But you might already know. So if you have autoimmune disease, then I would recommend for sure that you do the AIP protocol, right? That's the autoimmune protocol. and it is going to help. The whole specific goal to it is to help decrease that systemic inflammation that you're having when you have autoimmune disease. That Th17 gets activated and you're in the state of inflammation. So that is really good. And that is an elimination diet, so it's only 30 to 90 days. And then once you get off of that, you either go on to paleo or you can go on to a low lectin diet. And low lectin is forever. There are these lectins, which are basically, they're under the umbrella of anti-nutrients, and all living plants have lectins, basically, and it's our defense mechanism that we have as humans. We want to survive and thrive, right, and procreate. That's our main goals as human individuals. And plants have the same one, right? They want to survive and procreate. So in order to do that, they have what I call a hard candy shell around the germ or the seed of a plant. And it basically says, you cannot destroy me because I'm going to do everything I can to survive. And lectins can be very difficult to digest. So it's very helpful when you take lectins out of your diet. It can help quell inflammation. So those are found typically in nightshade vegetables, so eggplant and tomatoes and potatoes, except for sweet potato and yams, goji berries, peppers of all kind. And they're found in tomatoes, typically, or it said nightshades, but typically it's in the skin and the seeds, so cucumbers and squashes. If you remove the skin and the seeds, then it becomes low lectin. So those are really helpful. If you are diabetic, let's say, or you have insulin resistance, you already know that, then you do really well with a paleo or a keto program if you qualify for keto. And then if you have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or if you have irritable bowel syndrome or irritable bowel disease, you would best be suited for a low FODMAP, again an elimination, so 30 to 90 days. And then I also cover vegetarian or vegan. It's not my first choice for people typically, but a lot of people are culturally dedicated to being vegetarian or morally. And so I spell that out in the book as well, because there's different types of vegetarians, right? There's the vegetarians who live on pasta and Oreos and French fries and Coke, and then the other vegetarians who actually eat plants and plant sources for proteins.
Yeah, we have one of the doctors that works here is a vegetarian, and our listeners have certainly heard some of our conversations of, how do we kind of get closer to eating more natural foods, and if nothing else that we take from like the vegetarian community, can we start to add in a lot of these really good high quality plant foods, even if our other part of our plate has meat in it or something like that. And certainly I'm with you in that I think for some people they can be really healthy on something like that.
Yes.
I think for other people it's probably the complete wrong choice, but sometimes if we're going to really find that out, we almost have to treat our own health interventions as a little bit of a research project. And I want to do this for whatever reason we have, and it doesn't really matter what our reasons are, but how can I do this and be healthy, or can I do this and be healthy, I think should be the question that people are doing with any change or intervention that they're doing, especially dietarily, because it's just so. I think the thing that we run into in the diet world is it's so hard to get really good studies and outcomes to find out how things are changing people's health, because everyone is so different, right? How do we run these, what the medical community wants to be a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial on food? It's a really tough thing, but what do you do for some of that stuff? What are y'all, are patients tracking? What are they testing? How are they following their progress when they're making these changes?
So great question. How do we quantify this progress or this success? And I can do that all day long. We, whenever I meet with somebody, we do a full extensive panel of blood tests. and then I order a stool test. And the stool test is very comprehensive. It's about 86 pathogens. So I can see, are you having trouble digesting your fats? Are you making your own pancreatic enzymes to help break down your food? Do you have pathogens? Do you have yeast? Do you have things that would interfere with your digestion? Do you have parasites and worms and things like that? Do we have H. pylori, E. coli, things like that? But and then when I work with somebody, I usually detox them for the first 2 weeks on my detox, which is really, really helpful because it kind of takes the trash out. And once we detox, then we choose a food frame, and they're eating in that eating lifestyle. But we have a baseline, so I'm looking at all your blood sugars. So not only just your glucose, your fasting glucose, and your hemoglobin A1C, but I'm also looking at your C-peptide and insulin, so I can see if there's insulin resistance. I'm also looking at all 9 markers of your thyroid and your inflammation markers, your your C-reactive protein and homocysteine, looking at your methylation pathways. I'm also looking at liver and kidney and really getting a good idea. I can see if your bile is sticky and gooey and sludgy. So I'm getting a really good idea of, I have a good baseline. Once we eat differently, weight loss is just a side effect of wellness. So we do lose a lot of weight in my office, but it isn't the goal. This is not a weight loss clinic. I tell people all the time, I'm not focusing on weight loss, but weight loss happens because we're addressing wellness. So if somebody has a massive fire in the basement, is what I usually say, if they are very inflamed, they've got all this inflammation, and, it's like saying, we've got a fire in the basement. You've got somebody on the second floor saying, hey, can you help me change the light bulb? And you're like, what? We've got this fire. I got the fire department coming. And, of course, we're going to change the light bulb once the fire's out, right? So I sort of liken that to losing weight when your body's inflamed. So once we get the inflammation out, then the body will let go of all its resources. The body doesn't want to let go of resources when it's in a state of attack or in a state of inflammation. So quantitatively, we can see when you start losing weight that, yes, the body's starting to get less inflamed. But we have markers on the blood test and on the stool test that will indicate, is there inflammation? Calprotectin is one of those numbers that I look at for inflammation in the intestinal lining. Do we have leaky gut? These are all factors that play a part in improving our health, and of course weight loss is a side effect of that.
Yeah, the way that we found this was a lot of those markers are things that we find when people are in chronic pain is a lot of these things start to change. Their inflammatory markers start to elevate, their systemic function, their hormone levels are imbalanced. And, we were like, we can give them the best treatment, but if we don't start to correct the basic building blocks of health inside their body, are we really going to be successful in changing their life? And so that starts to take us down. Do we need to take them on a detox? We had a wonderful conversation with Dr. Joseph Anton, the CEO of El Nutra, on here, who does, the fasting mimicking diet and how much that can kind of reset the system and flush out, inflammation and, produce stem cells. And it's like, I think it's built into us that we should have these moments throughout, our life where we kind of detoxify and, clear out all the damage that has accumulated through, our normal living environment today more than ever. What are some of the best ways that people can start that part of the process? Well, detoxifying, as you said, is critical.
The FDA, this is a new number, I'm sad to report, but we've been approved for 86,000 chemicals to use, and well over 3,000 of which we can eat. So we're getting chemicals all the time. It's in our soils, so therefore it's in our food, it's in our makeup, it's in our clothes, it's in our sheets, it's in our laundry detergent, our shampoos, deodorant. I mean, you go on and on and on. So we're slowly being poisoned, essentially. I mean, we have a lot of toxins around us. So whether we're breathing them or putting them on our skin or eating them or drinking them, they're there. So it's really important to take out the trash, as you said, and detoxify the body. It will help tremendously. I've been doing this for so many years that I created my own detox called the RGN Detox, or Risa Groux Nutrition Detox, and it's with collagen and amino acids and antioxidants to help open up pathways 1 and 2 for detoxification. You're still eating food, but easily digestible food, and you're having a couple shakes a day. And taking some supplements that help gently detoxify the liver and the blood. And we've seen tremendous results on that. But there's lots of different ways you can detox. I have not really found one that's more effective than that. But you can make small changes and just take out all the toxic chemicals in your cosmetics or in your shower or in your food. Do the best you can with something to detoxify or just decrease your toxic load. That would absolutely help. There's lots of detoxes on the market. I'm not a big fan of juice cleanses. Juice takes all the fiber out of the fruit or the vegetables, and so you're really not. That's what the fiber sticks onto the. It binds with the toxins and escorts them out of the system. So those are really, I call them juice fasts, and they're great to give your digestion a break, but they're really not a detox or a cleanse. So it's not something I'd recommend. But there's colonic cleanses that sometimes can be effective, and people need to do what works best for them.
I think that we always try and go back to like, what's the research say? Where's the data? And so I'm excited to see this next step where we have more and more mass data collection with wearables and with, hopefully the continued progression with things like continuous glucose monitors, where we can start to collect data from a large number of people and start seeing how are interventions actually affecting people. Because that part's exciting in the diet world for the reasons we were talking about earlier. It's really tough to get accurate information across the large studies, and even some of the high quality diet studies are like these retrospective surveys where it's asking someone to fill out what they ate throughout the week on a Sunday. I'm like, the chance that that's accurate is very, very low. We're in South Louisiana. We're like, oh, I only had this much rice. Like, no, you had 3 servings of rice. I saw you go back to the gumbo bowl.
So
let's
dairy
dive into
another one. I don't eat dairy. Oh, you're right. It was in my salad. Oh, it was on my sandwich. Or, dairy just pops up, and people don't, because they don't eat a chunk of cheese or drink a glass of milk, they don't think they're eating dairy.
Yeah, I forget what somebody actually did kind of the study to see how accurate those things are, like when we have these. And as everyone knows, I don't remember the numbers, but it's not accurate. It's not a great way for us to study things. Let's dive into the food frames a little bit. Can we go through a few of the most common food frames that you find people in?
Yeah. So the one that I think across the board has the most broadest appeal is paleo. And paleo I find to be the easiest to travel, to live, to maintain, and you're going to probably get the most benefit out of it. So it's sort of a win-win for pretty much everybody across the board. So the whole goal of paleo, and the name is from Paleolithic times, so it's really eating like the caveman. And it really focuses on quality of food, which is great because, as I was mentioning, our food is so tainted. Our cows are fed antibiotics and hormones, and even our fish now, and our pigs, everything. A lot of that is fed a lot of antibiotics and growth hormones, and then they're eating grain versus grass and so on and so forth. So paleo is really about quality, so grass-fed, grass-finished, pastured rather than caged poultry, and wild and not farmed fish, which is becoming harder and harder to get. But it's animal protein. It's unlimited vegetables any way you want them except for deep fried. And there is not a high concentration on corn or peas, things like that, but a little bit. And then sweet potato and yams, those are allowed. And then good fats, so eggs, nuts, seeds, olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, things like that. There's minimum alcohol, and there's minimum sugar. So you can use coconut sugar and honey, things that are natural, not really processed sugar, refined sugars, refined oils, and processed foods. There is no dairy typically, or it's natural, unpasteurized, raw dairy, a little bit, but really not that much. And so it is really focused on the purity of food, very less processed food.
Yeah, that's an interesting shift, because I think so many people thought of early on as paleo being the quality of the health of the people during that time. But it's actually the quality of the food that was in this modern era, which is such an interesting kind of change. I've never put that with it, that, we're not looking at how healthy the people were during that. We're looking at how healthy the food options were during that time.
Correct.
That's a much more, impactful thought.
Well, if you think about it, the statistic is that we have lost 40% of our nutrients from our soil since the 1950s. So that's a tremendous amount. And I just got back from Southeast Asia yesterday, and when I planted some cabbage with a farmer there, and it was all organic, and I was feeling the soil, and you can feel it, you can see it in their vegetables, you can see the color and the crispness. And in America, you look at some of the vegetables that we use and that are available in the markets, and they're dull, they're lacking in color, they're not crisp or even that tasty. So I notice it a lot with strawberries. Sometimes you eat a strawberry and it just doesn't even have any flavor. So it's our soils are depleted, and coincidentally, that's when the supplement business, the vitamin business, started in the 1950s, is because we started to put chemicals in our soil, so we had to actually supplement those vitamins that we weren't getting from our food with actual supplements. So, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So, quality of food is a big deal. What we eat either helps us or hinders us, and even if it's real food, that real food, if there's chemicals and has been processed or tainted, or that soil is not good, it's not helping us as much as it could.
Yeah, definitely. Risa, give me 1 second. Let me tell them to turn that off.
Okay.
so sorry. All right.
Are you there?
So, hello. Hey,
Yeah.
sorry about that. So, if people are like starting to change into the paleo kind of framework, what's the big changes that they see in some of like the blood work in their health and what they're feeling?
Yeah, so paleo, we typically see a decrease in blood sugars. So we will see the C-peptide and insulin, fasting insulin, start to regulate, as well as the hemoglobin A1C and the fasting glucose. So we typically see that. We will also see inflammation markers go down. So again, that's the C-reactive protein, and typically the homocysteine will start to come down. We might see some fatty liver start to reverse as well. So your AST and your ALT, depending on where it was, if there was fatty liver, that will start to come down. And that's pretty much, sometimes the thyroid can be affected, sometimes the gallbladder, the GGT we're looking at, white blood cell count, things like that. Those can be, start to stabilize.
That's one thing that I think I do find very exciting about making these dietary changes is in a lot of cases when we've had health problems that have come from us eating the wrong things, the research seems to show that as we start to get that corrected, that people actually are able to reverse a lot of those problems, where it's not like it just stops them, but they actually will backtrack. And we see that with diabetes. We're seeing that with, certain types of, organ, function, hormone dysregulation, that when we do start eating the right way for our body, for ourselves, that we not only stop the damage, but it seems that we reverse that in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. The body can heal with food. It absolutely can. You have to find out what's awry or what's out of balance, and then start to balance it. But food really will affect it. Now, not all the time. It depends on the severity of that, or the amount of imbalance that there is, or the source of the imbalance. But just by changing food, we can absolutely help with blood pressure. That's another area, weight loss, things like that. But metabolically, we see it on the blood test for sure.
This might be a little bit of an aside before we go on to the other ones, but how much do you see people's beliefs around food affect their health, and how much do you need to spend on changing that part of it?
People have a lot of shtick with food. There's no question, right? We're celebrated with food. We're punished with food. We're rewarded with food. We use food as not just fuel, right? People don't have the same relationship with brushing their teeth, right? They don't drive home and going, I have enough toothpaste in the tube, right? We just have this relationship with food. So there definitely plays a part in it. Some people, they have issues. Their relationship with food needs to be addressed, and I do a lot of that in my office too, because it is a thing. And now we're in eating season, and so we've been talking a lot about the upcoming holidays, and just because there is Halloween candy around, do we have to eat it? So there's a lot of these traditions that we have for Thanksgiving or Christmas. What do we do food-wise, right? Do we have to just eat that whole coffee cake, or do we need to eat all that stuffing and mashed potatoes? There's a lot of mental stuff that takes place with the food. And some people will really want to change, but they just have a lot of that relationship with food issues for them. A lot of times it's family stuff, or it's actually relationship stuff. If the husband is the influencer and the wife is wanting to be healthy, and the husband says, no, just have some of this with me, and this won't kill you, and why are you doing? So there's a lot of that relationship stuff that people have to deal with. So it's a fact. It's there.
So It's funny. I had a conversation with somebody and I asked them like what the biggest failure or what the biggest point of failure was in someone changing their diet, and they said their spouse. I was like, that's not the answer that I thought I was going to get.
Exactly.
But what do you find in that? Like when people are starting to go down this road of improving their health, changing what they're eating, what are the big hiccup points that they should know before they get into it?
You know, I think people come from a place of deprivation. I can't have that. And I say, no. You can have anything you want. You're just choosing to not eat that right now. And if you take this power, and I'm choosing to feed my body food that it's going to thrive with, and I'm choosing to better my health rather than I'm on this restriction and I have this diet and I can't have these things. That is the wrong way to look at it, because I say to people in my office all the time, you can eat whatever you want. I'm just helping you create something that you came in for to feel better. And, we know that if we want to do better at work, we've got to put a little bit more time into it, right? If we want to have a better relationship, we've got to put some effort into it. There isn't anything that just appears for free, basically. We all have to earn things, and our health is no different. Especially now, since we have so many toxins, we have to really do a lot of make conscious decisions about what we will and what we won't put into our bodies. That is it's a big factor, and it's just interesting because when somebody looks at making changes with their food, they're scared to let go of things. And I always say, these things are going to be there. It's not like you're never, ever, ever, ever going to have a cookie ever again, or a piece of cheese, or a piece of pizza. I don't think we should live life with the never, ever, nevers, but we're just going to budget them. Just like you budget your money. You just don't go spend it all in one day just because it's in your bank account. Even if you can, you just wouldn't do it. It wouldn't be prudent. So we budget our food as well. And if I've had this conversation a lot today, how do you want to feel when you're putting your head down on your pillow the night of Thanksgiving? Do you want to feel proud of yourself? Do you want to feel good? Do you want to wake up the next morning with some energy? Or do you want to do this perpetual, I don't feel well, I ate too much because of a certain day on the calendar? I mean, it's really crazy, right? So I think eating consciously and having some intention on what you want. And there might be days where you say, you know what? I want to have a piece of pizza. Okay, so plan for that. Have a piece of pizza. Don't have the whole thing. And budget for that. And then get right back on track after that pizza. So if you're traveling, same thing. Go out of the box a little bit, because that's how we experience cultures. But you don't have to go down with the ship. And you don't have to put a certain date on the calendar that you'll say, I'm just going to open the gate wide and go through this destruction until this certain date on the calendar, whether it's after my birthday or after New Year's or after Christmas or whatever it is. Just take each meal as it comes and make some intentions, put some goals on this. What do I want? How do I feel? Because to my knowledge, most of us are in control of what goes in our mouth, right? Nobody's shoving it in our mouth. So take that control and plan.
And I think what you said is so powerful. If we start to make decisions based on how it's going to make us feel after, that is incredibly powerful, because while looking at that dozen donuts, you're like, oh, that looks appetizing, but how am I going to feel after? Is that going to help me feel great and show up like as my best self? I know what my answer is. Some other people may have a different answer, but that's a different framework of like, can I start eating food that makes me feel really good? Like after that, I'm fueling my body and not what it's doing for those few seconds that it's in my mouth. Like, I don't remember who said it, but they
mentally
were like, we're trading feeling for a few seconds of mouth pleasure. And you're like, God, that's exactly what it is a lot of times. So what's another one of the big food frames that you see?
So the other one I would say is low FODMAP is probably one that I recommend a fair amount of time, because people have chronic bloating, and it's usually coupled with either chronic constipation, which I see quite a bit, or chronic diarrhea, which I actually see quite a bit too. And there could be alternating diarrhea to constipation. So typically that means something's going on, right? We're having this bloating, we're creating methane gas production because we're not able to digest these foods. So we bloat, we bring in the gases, please help me break this down. Sometimes it could be a lack of digestive enzymes, that's possible. Certainly as we age, we produce and excrete less and less. But if it's coupled with some diarrhea or constipation, it's likely that it's probably some SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. And that basically means that this bacteria that's supposed to park itself in the large intestines ends up parking itself in the small intestine. And there's certain foods, different type of carbohydrates that go in and they absorb water, and they're called FODMAPs. And FODMAP is an acronym for fermented oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So in plain English, these are carbohydrates that can cause this gas production, and it's very uncomfortable. And people live with this day in and day out. It amazes me how long people can live with discomfort. And so I typically test people. In that stool test, I can determine if there is SIBO or if it's IBS. It's very similar symptoms as well. But then I recommend the low FODMAP diet. So this one's a little trickier. It's very restrictive, and it's not restricted forever, but 30 to 90 days. And the stricter you are at the beginning, the better off you'll be. And usually with a low FODMAP protocol, people see immediate relief. And we're trying to kill that bacteria and not feed it, basically. I couple it with a supplement protocol so that we have more success. And SIBO is a little tricky to kill, so there's a few ways we do it, but I've had great success with supplementation and low FODMAP diet. And that, again, would just be for a short period of time, and very difficult because onions and garlic are really one of the two major culprits that will bloat people, and they're not even usually aware of that until they come into my office. And when it's very difficult to remove those because they're in everything, especially when you go out to eat. So that would be another one that I use quite a bit. And then the other one I use a lot is the autoimmune protocol, the AIP. And if you have any autoimmune disease or several of them, I would highly recommend it because it causes all that inflammation that's going on in the body. It's really important to quell that inflammation. So we see so many people with symptoms that just seem to dissipate once we are on the AIP. Again, it's strict. It's not for everybody, but if you can comply on 30 to 90 days, you will feel so much better.
What would a day look like on the low, on either one of those? Like, what would a typical eating day look like?
So on an autoimmune protocol, it's very similar to paleo, except it takes out the nightshades. It removes any kind of legumes, any dairy, any sugar. There's no chocolate, there's no alcohol, there's no coffee, there's no eggs, there's no nuts, and there's no seeds. So it leaves you with animal protein, so you can do like my collagen shake, or you can have some good clean bacon or sausages, as long as they're good quality. You can have some sweet potatoes, salad with some chicken or fish or turkey or beef or something like that, with some avocado and some olives for lunch. Or you can have a soup, chicken soup with, I do noodles made out of zucchini and carrots and parsnips in my mandolin. And then dinner, same thing. You can have animal protein and vegetables, sweet potato and yams. So you could have a turkey burger with some sweet potato fries. That would be good, in a salad. And then low FODMAP was a little trickier. You can't have the onions or the garlics or some of the cruciferous vegetables. So again, you could do a shake, collagen shake for breakfast, or you could do a little bit of eggs and some vegetables. Zucchini pasta would be great, or just zucchini noodles. Zucchini and spinach are really good. and you got to go easy on vegetables. You can have like one asparagus the first week and then build up. I go in great detail with lists in my book, but animal protein you're going to do really well with. So it's very difficult to be vegetarian or vegan with any of these protocols, but that would be what I would recommend for those people.
Is that why you think so many people now are doing really well on this like carnivore type diet? It's not necessarily like what they're taking in, but what they're taking out in that seems to be a big thing, is people talking about real good results that they're getting from it. But this makes a lot more sense than someone just saying, well, I just eat meat.
Yeah, exactly. When we take out processed foods and crackers and cookies and chips and things like that, which I think is a very, it's a mainstay for a lot of people, where they just grab processed foods. We tend to eat a lot more from the pantry than we do from the refrigerator, and it doesn't do the body well. So when we take those out and we're eating actual animal protein and some vegetables, we tend to do better. And I'm not suggesting that you eat a whole cow, right, at one sitting. I'm not suggesting that you're having 10 ounces of animal protein. But if you have 3 to 6 ounces, depending on how much exercise you're doing, then you're getting protein. We thrive on protein. Our brain needs protein. Our muscles need protein. We need protein. So plant proteins are great, but they have some, they can be difficult for the system. So they're high in lectins, and they're high in carbohydrates. When I was vegan for a while, I saw my blood sugars go up and up and up and up, and I wasn't eating any sugar at all. I wasn't eating rice, or I would have a little bit of quinoa, but I had a lot of beans, a lot of black beans and garbanzo beans and lentils, which are great sources of plant-based proteins, but they were all that carbohydrates. They were just jacking up my blood sugar.
Yeah, we're doing a 100-day challenge. Like the last 100 days of the year, we do pick a challenge and go through it, and we're doing no processed foods and no like refined carbohydrates. And what the first thing we realized was snacking is incredibly difficult. You
Right?
like look in the pantry and you're like, I can't have any of this stuff. So you start looking like, okay, well, let me get some zucchini. Let me have some cucumbers. Like, how can we start snacking with natural foods? And we feel amazing, but it's just so easy to grab these very convenient things. But it's been an interesting education on, some of these easy foods to snack with.
It's great. I love that you're doing that. That's awesome.
You mentioned your book. I wanted to thank you for that, because I'm in like the last probably 6 weeks of the editing process, and we're really pushing to get my first book out. So when I was going through yours, I was like, the amount of attention to detail and information that is in there is incredible. So thank you for putting that together for everyone to help improve their lives. Tell us a little bit about that and where people can find it.
Of course, yes. I work with people all over the country, and you can find me on my website at Risa Groux Nutrition. That's RISAGROUX Nutrition. And I have my book Food Frame for sale there. It's also on Amazon and Target and Barnes & Noble. And I can be found on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Risa Groux Nutrition. I'm always trying to give some good information to people that they can use. And
That's awesome. We ask all of our guests, if you could tell people one thing that they could do today to improve their health, what would that be?
Well, I think you set the example for everybody. Taking out processed food would be an amazing start. And if you can't take it all out, then absolutely assess it and try and get most of it out. And hang on to maybe one thing a day, or just read labels. Read labels for sure, and know what's coming into the body.
Love it. Risa, thank you so much. I love the information that you're putting out there for people. Everybody go check her out. We'll throw links to everything that Risa talked about in her book for sure, for y'all to dive into and really get specific on what you individually should be taking in to improve your health. So keep doing everything you're doing, Risa. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and good luck on your book.
Thank you so much. I'll need that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Risa.
Take care.